What's going on, people in YouTube land? Kimchi Chris here, and welcome to today's brand new video where we are going to review the brand new record from Danzig. Danzig sings Elvis. That's right, the guy that's been known as the evil Elvis for years is finally releasing his tribute to the original king of rock and roll himself, Mr. Elvis Presley. And Elvis has had a huge impact on Glenn Danzig's life. So you can't take away that there's a labor of love and some passion involved with this record, but that being said, I can just let the cat out of the bag right now. This is not a good record. If you've been following Danzig's career as of late, you didn't really expect this to be good, but you still were going to listen to it because, just like me, you were curious about this record as well. But before we talk about the current version of Glenn Danzig, it's important to talk about the old version of Glenn Danzig, the original Danzig, because a lot of people know him more as a meme now. That's pretty much just how it is. He's become known as that, as just this guy that, is so evil and brooding, but also, gets cat litter at the store. But in reality, he fronted the Misfits, one of the most quintessential punk bands of all time, and one of my favorite bands of all time. He also fronted Sam Hain, another very important band to hardcore and punk, and then Danzig formed, the band that took his namesake, kind of like Bon Jovi being fronted by John Bon Jovi, kind of the same concept. And the first 4 Danzig records are great. The first EP is great as well. After that, it gets a little bit hit or miss for a while, and then we get to the current version of Danzig where everything's just... It's just weird. It's just weird. It's not really good, and it's confusing always. It's very confusing as to what's really happening with this guy and his career in 2020. Because we could sit here all day and talk about his bad musical output as of late, but the thing that makes this whole thing more interesting and more confusing is the fact that he headlines arenas and huge music festivals with the reunited version of the original Misfits. Those guys only play arenas, they only headline huge festivals, yet he doesn't seem to be able to put out good music on his own, and it's very confusing. Even the current version of the Misfits, the Jerry Only led version, even if you hate their music, the actual recordings sound better than this record and anything he's put out recently, but we are getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here with that being brought up. So let's dial it back a little bit and get to what we were supposed to actually be talking about here. Danzig sings Elvis! So I guess that old Glenn thought that the world wasn't messed up enough right now, and he decided, he just wanted to throw this out at us and make things just a little bit worse. And oh boy, did he succeed, because this is a record he's been threatening to put out for a while now, and his last couple records, they're not good. If you've been following the channel for quite a while, you might remember my review of his last original studio record, Black Laden Crown. Is that what it was called? I think that's what it was called. It was trash. It was awful. And the record he put out before that, Skeletons, was another collection of covers. It wasn't all just one artist, but that was the one where he decided to just ruin songs from like Black Sabbath, Aerosmith, Everly Brothers. But Elvis is a special case for him. He wanted to take a whole record and pay tribute to the king and also just, desecrate the legacy of the king. And if he was trying to truly put out a bad record here, then this would be completely understandable. But I think he was trying to put out a good record because he loves Elvis. He always talks about that, and the only thing I can figure is that all these people in his backing band that just perform awful on this, the record company putting it out, his management, everything else, they're scared of Danzig. That's the only thing I can think of. It's kind of like that Aqua Teen Hunger Force episode that he's in where he doesn't wear a shirt and they talk about being frightened of him. They don't know how to say anything negative towards, little Danzig there. And I guess that's understandable. He's a guy that's known to strike fear into people. That's all I can really figure. Maybe the other end of this was that he just had so much money from those Misfits reunion shows that just threw a lot of money at some people and they released the record. But nonetheless, he chose a lot of songs that are deep cuts. They're deep cuts from the Elvis catalog, and that's kind of cool and kind of not cool at the same time, because I think most Danzig fans are not going to know all the deep cuts, but nonetheless, that's what he chose here. And on top of choosing deep cuts, he chose a lot of slow songs, a lot of ballads, a lot of love songs, and that's where the problem really lies on this record. Not only does it sound bad, but it all sounds the same, because a lot of these songs were released as 45s and singles initially before they were on records, and a lot of those older bands have some kind of similar sounding material. They have like the upbeat rockers, they have the mid-tempo ones, and they have the ballads, but he really concentrated on the ballads here, and it's hard to distinguish one song from the other. I mean, if you had someone performing these songs or a band performing these songs that had some good production behind them, some good performances, you could distinguish the differences, but that's again not what's taking place here. Arguably the biggest hit on here is Always on My Mind, and everybody knows that song, but it's just performed in such a way that it just sounds like a drunk guy at karaoke at 2 in the morning on a Wednesday in a bar in the smallest town in the smallest corner of I don't know, Alabama or something, and you listen to it and your mind is blown that this is the same guy that put out so many classics like Mother, obviously everyone knows Mother, or you could have Twists of Cain, or Godless, or Dirty Black Summer, any of those great songs. And you don't understand how this is the same person. And I know that I'm comparing him to the Danzig of 30 years ago, and everybody changes, everybody ages, and it happens. But there's a lot of great performers still putting out good records into their 50s, 60s, 70s. So that is not a good excuse here that he's old and that's the reason he sounds bad, because he doesn't even hit a lot of these notes. He's out of key, he's out of time. I'm assuming some of the words might be wrong. I don't know enough about Elvis to really, concentrate on that side of things, but with everything else being wrong, I'm sure some of those are wrong as well. But on the karaoke side of things, if he was performing these at karaoke, you at least would have a decent backing track, and that's not what you have here. It sounds like he gave all these guys the songs and said, play them once through. We're gonna record it at a rehearsal space with a pretty low quality microphone, and that's the record. I don't want to spend any more time on it because, this is a lifelong goal of mine to pay tribute to the king, but I don't want to spend more than, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half working on the actual songs themselves. And I'm sure he'll say he was going for a lo-fi, dirty garage sound, but that's not what we have here. What we have here is a band that formed because the one guy said, hey, I like Elvis. Do you like Elvis? The other guy said, yeah, I like Elvis and I like Natty Light. The other guy said, if we form a band and we play at the local bar on a Wednesday night, we can get some free Natty Light and they won't know the difference that we're not really Elvis. But oh boy, we can tell the difference that you're not really Elvis. And the thing is, this really does sound like an awful bar band that you leave the bar when they're playing. You kind of look at them and you go, man, I don't want to be part of this. I don't want to be part of this right now. And then you hear them and you really realize you don't want to be part of this right now, and you just leave. But with this, it's Glenn Danzig putting it out. And again, that's the part that's just so shocking and just mind-boggling. And even the more up-tempo songs like Baby Let's Play House, Don't Save This Thing, the ones that are more rockin' are still just as bad. The musicianship is bad, the singing is bad, the production is bad, everything about it is bad. And even on top of that, I have a really hard time believing Danzig when he's in his mid-60s singing songs about forgotten love with high school girls. I at least hope that Danzig doesn't have forgotten love with high school girls at this point in his life, but I really don't think he does, but just the ideal of that is just like hilarious. I mean, really on this record, even with his bad ones in the past, there's been something positive to say somewhere along the line about the band or the band. It always seems like Danzig is his own worst enemy, and with this one, I can't say anything positive about this record. And you might be asking yourself, Kimchi Chris, why did you even make this review? You usually try to keep things positive on your channel. Why are you doing this? Because I really do avoid bad records most of the time, but this one is just so laughably bad, and the Misfits are one of my favorite bands, and I just wanted to share this with you guys as a little bit of a warning to stay away from it. I mean, this will really make you have a bad day. I listened to this first thing in the morning a couple days ago, right when it came out, and first of all, it felt like it took 4 hours to get through, even though the thing is like 35 minutes long, and it just made me have a bad emotional state for the rest of the day. It emotionally affected me on the worst level possible. So I would advise you staying away from this record, but I'd also advise you to maybe like bring up one track on Spotify just so you can hear what I'm talking about and, maybe get a good laugh in for the day, because this record, it did things to me. I hope it doesn't do those things to you, but if you're really a glutton for punishment, if you're quite the masochist, you could check it out, but otherwise it's bad. It's bad. It's bad all around. It's a complete bomb, a complete disgrace, and I don't know why it exists in the world. But with all that being said, have you actually checked this out? What did you think of it? Let me know in the comments below. Bombard me with the comments that I'm wrong, or praise me with the comments that I'm right. Either way, it helps the algorithm out, and even if you give this thing a thumbs down, it still helps out. So if you really hate this review, just don't interact at all. But if you like it in any way, shape, or form, give it a thumbs up, because again, any interaction is helpful on the channel. And if you are new around here, hit that subscribe button, because we're always putting out new content, new videos all the time. Hit the little bell so you actually get the updates. Again, my name is Kimchi Chris, and this has been an awful record. We will see you guys on the next video.